G'day everybody, welcome back to another episode of Photo Australia. Grant's going to take us through some software and I might have a few questions and see how we go. So over to you, Grant.
Yeah, thanks Brad. Hi folks. At a recent club meeting we were given a copy of a program, excuse me, and of course that brought about questions as how to use it. So rather than explain that over and over again, we thought we'd try and put together a series of these short videos on various programs. What we're looking at today is Nik, N-I-K. So we're starting off in a DXO, Photo Lab 4, who own Nik. And you can see on your screen there, on the left is the original photo, raw photo, and on the right is the photo I've made a few basic adjustments to. It's just bringing up the lights a bit and the exposure a bit, but nothing. I haven't spent too much time on this. Just a matter of not even 2 minutes. So from there, we're now going to take it into Nik. Nik's a program, a plug-in program that has various options in it, and you can play around with these to your heart's content. Has a really good black and white processor, Silver Effects Pro, arguably up there with the best of them, this one, and Color Effects Pro, which is where we're going to go now. Okay, there's already a copy of this made, but this is going to make a new version of it for us. It takes a little while to load up, and which it will do. So, Brad, have you had any experience with Nik? Have you ever used this?
I've used the Silver FX Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, a lot of people go for it because of the subtle differences in mono photography.
Yep.
Haven't used. I know a lot of photographers have raved about the Nik software, and like you said, it's sort of bounced around, and people use different versions of it. Some versions before DXO bought it out. I've had a little bit with it, but not a lot. Mainly the mono photography is where I've sort of played with it a little bit with some of my mono photos.
Yep, sure. Okay, well now we are in the Nik Color Effects Pro 4 interface, and on the left hand side is where we'll start. You've got your little tabs up here of all is showing you all the presets, and then you can go to various more targeted ones. I leave it on all because I do tend to play around in all of them. They all doing something different, of course, but one of the ones that I use a lot, and now this photo, I just want to reiterate, this is a raw photo. It has had minimal adjustments made to it. It's pretty well straight off the camera. I've increased the exposure a bit, as you saw from the opening comparison, and I think I increased the shadows a bit, and that's it. That's all that we've done. So let's go in here to Detail Extractor, and I'll just show you what this one does. Sort of a high definition version of it. Now, Nik always has its default setting in every option it gives you, and this is, I think, fairly subtle adjustments that it makes, the program's made for you. You can go to your stronger, larger details, which some people will like, and as you can see, Brad, it starts to really pump things out a bit.
It's making the sky very dramatic.
Very dramatic sky, and it was a dramatic sky. And then you can go to this type of thing, which is not my cup of tea at all. I don't like the halo it puts in around edges, but that's all right. Some people do, and then of course others like the extreme effects. Let's scamper back to where I'm comfortable in the default section.
So just to give a quick rundown of this software, basically it's got a lot of preset settings, as Grant was just clicking on. I know with the Silver FX Pro, when I was mucking around with it here a few years ago, there was a lot of different things that you could put a look to something. So back in the old days with the films, you could buy different types of films to give a particular look to your photograph. I know it's got a lot of presets like that, as well as what Grant's going through at the moment. So they're basically single click, and you can see the effect that it's putting on, and then you can make subtle changes to that effect if you would like to.
Yep, that's right. And so we've done that. We've stayed in the default. And I'll just show you one example. Just watching on the right hand side here, you can see detail extractor 25%, contrast 6%, etc. So if I go to strong large details, just watch those numbers. And so they've changed quite dramatically in what they've done. So the program writers have determined that on your behalf. I'm prepared to say they're probably all very nice people, but I'd rather do it myself. So so we're back to the default section now. We can come over here on the right-hand side and we can make these adjustments ourselves. Plus, we can add a control point if we want to. So we can come over here and hit the plus button. You can see where I'm looking on the right-hand side here, control points. And let's say we add a control point down here on the mountain. Now, having done that, we've got the ability to adjust these tools here. And we can increase the area that we're adjusting, or decrease it down if we wanted to. It's quite, the opacity we can pull back, as you can see. So there's a lot of things we can do on it there if you want to work on a particular section. I'll remove that for the moment by hitting the negative button. So we can adjust contrast over here, the amount of the detail extractor we apply. Remember that the strong large details tab jumped up to 60%. This is on 25, so you could mess around there. Contrast and saturation. And then your effect radius, you've got all of that there as well that you can experiment with to your heart's content. Now, I'm just going to leave that like it is and say, yeah, well, okay, that's not too bad. So, but I want to do more, right? So you're not limited to that. We now go to add filter. And we come back on the left-hand side now. We go to the back button. We go back to the main menu. So let's throw in this one, darken, lighten, center. And we get this impact of where we can brighten the, so that's the default, maximum, or brighten the edges. So I'm going to go to maximum in this case. And we add this in. Again, we can add a control point to it. We can put the control point in there if we wanted to, and you can see what it's done. So we can bring that down. We can make that a bit smaller if we wanted to, or we could make it bigger. And that's going to lighten that area of the shot.
Now, why Grant's doing this, and it's something I've been harping on this year, and it's only because I've noticed in a few camera clubs that it's sort of the next stage for them to look in their photographs and control, is Grant's controlling where the brightest part of the photograph is, or what he wants lit up. If you look at a lot of high-end, very high-end photographs, they'll take a raw photo, and in their processing, they've got fantastic composition. They've nailed that. They've nailed everything, their subject in the photograph. The next step is to try and do exactly the same in your processing. And by controlling your light in the photograph, it gives the viewer who's looking at your photograph of where their eye leads into the photo. So if you've got a leading line or a particular subject or object in the photograph and you want the people to look straight to the object or follow their way down a path, controlling the light of where the brightest and the darkest areas in your photograph will lead the eye into your photograph. So doing with Grant's setting a particular point in his photograph, you'll notice it will darken a lot around the area and brighten where you're focusing on. So because our eyes always lead to the brightest area in a photograph.
Correct. So that's what we do there. I'm going to remove that again. If you want to remove it, you just click on the negative sign, it disappears. Now, the shape of your filter here is also adjustable. And that's the square shape was what we were using before. We can go to the oval shape. And this one allows you to adjust the center luminosity, so you can mess around with that and see what you can do. And you can see how it's adjusting it there. And then the border, and then the center size. So you can make that bigger, or you can make it smaller if you want to do something. So you could put this on, you could put that on the tree, you could do anything you like with it. So the point being, you have a lot of adjustment in here. You're not just accepting a filter from the people at Nik. They're giving you a tool, and then you can apply that tool to your image in whatever way, shape or form you believe is necessary. So I'm going to leave that there at that for the moment, and then I'm going to say, well, that's okay, but I still think we need more. So let's add another filter. So again, add filter, come back over here to back, and let's run down here, and there's one that I do use quite a bit, and it's Pro Contrast. Come into here, and again you have the neutral version, which is fairly flat, and you can see what they've done over here with it, not very much. You can let the program auto enhance it, one of the few options in Nik actually where they do give this auto enhance. I'm not really a fan of it, to be quite honest with you. It gives, I rarely get a result I'm happy with in it. So, and then you can go to the dynamic contrast and to a strong contrast. And that's all pretty self-explanatory for what it's doing. So let's leave it at, in this case, I think probably the strong works as well as anything, because this shot was taken at Edeowie Station in the Flinders Ranges, which is about a 5-hour drive north of Adelaide in South Australia. A very iconic region, beautiful region, and you get these beautiful sunrises and sunsets. And that was the toning. It was sort of an orangey red glow over everybody. Yeah, perhaps neutral. So we can do that, and you think, yeah, okay. And now we can play around with our colour casts, all these tools that you can go to work with if you want to. Again, so we'll just pump that a little bit. I'll bring the shadows up just a smidge. Okay, so let's add a filter. Now, Brad said something before that was interesting. So let's go and see what Brad can remember in his days of film photography. Film effects, modern branded. So here, we'll go to default. Now, you notice on the right-hand side, under this tab now, on the right-hand side,
you get to choose what film.
Agfa Optima 400, right?
Yep.
And there's a drop-down box. You ready, Brad?
Yeah.
Here you go. Here you go. So what do you want to play with in film? I'll just run over them.
I was always a Kodak person.
Yeah, well, you're going to get a bit of a shock here, mate.
Yeah,
I can tell you.
I didn't, because my experience was very short-lived.
Mm-hmm.
The only film days I had were, well, it was only black and white.
Yep.
But was at school, high school,
Yep.
and I did a subject in photography.
Yep.
So that was about, and did a bit of processing in an actual Lightroom. So.
Yep.
But yeah, I only used Kodak, so I didn't get to play around with. A lot of people talk about the Fuji and different types of films, and they all give a different look. So
don't they? And I mean, I'm just running down here, and so I'm going slowly. You can see what I'm doing on the right-hand side is highlights, and it applies the filter, and it's fascinating actually. It is quite fascinating to play in. And look, again, these effects are written. They're done digitally. It's not actual film, of course, but it's someone's interpretation of what the film looked like. But it's an interesting process that they go through. And I find it something that I have used a bit. I don't mind that one, so I'll add that one to it. So
what's interesting about this software is that you can be a complete beginner at processing.
Yep.
And you can just basically, it's a bit like Lightroom has some presets also. And some of the pro photographers actually give out their own custom ones of that.
It's become very popular now, hasn't it?
It becomes popular, but the good thing is if you've already sort of got a really nice lighting and composition with your photography that you've taken with your camera, and we'll talk a bit about RAW and JPEG in another video, the advantages and disadvantages. But I'll say now, if you've taken one in RAW and you apply these filters, you can very easily, if you're not that competent in processing, you can certainly try some of these different settings and very quickly and easily get a reasonable outcome with just by clicking a few buttons.
Exactly. And and it's limitless. Now, you can go on adding filters. There's no limit to how many of these you can do. You just go again, add, and go back to the main menu, and you can mess around in here. Oh goodness!
They've got a lot more there than I remember.
Yeah, there's image borders, there's infrared, there's inks, levels, curves, blah 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 blah. You've got it. There is lots and lots and lots. Let's add a vignette to it. We'll add a vignette filter to it, and we'll do the default. There we go. Now, again, you get very fine adjustment you can play with. Your colour, your shape. You can see what the shape it's chosen there, the oval shape, which I quite like. You can adapt your edges, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's all there to do. So it takes away a lot of the mystery, and it does it very, very well. Now, at the end of all that, you can save your recipe. If you've hit on something that you like and you want to apply it going forward, you can hit the save recipe, give it your own personal name or tag, and then you can apply it to images going forward. So that is a quick look in Nik's Color Effect Pro. One last one we're going to add one more filter before we finish up. And this one is to simply give you a quick little look in case you're thinking, well, I wonder how that would look as a black and white. So come up right up to the top and you go to black and white conversion and you just throw in soft red, for example, and you start getting a bit of an idea for what it may look like if you decided to go down the black and white path. And you can, again, mess around in there to your heart's content. It offers all sorts of filters. Oh, don't mind that, Brad. So there it is, folks. That's a quick look at Nik and what it does. Now, it doesn't matter whether you get it as a standalone product or plug in to something like DXO or Lightroom. It's out there, it's available. It's not hard to use, but it's very complex program, and I recommend it, Brad.
Yeah, it's certainly worth checking out. Got any questions, make sure you hit us up on email or write your comments below. It's a bit of a quick glance at the Nik software, and certainly worth looking at whether you're a beginner or professional of how quick and easy you can change the look and effect of your photographs. So with that, we'll leave that episode right there. Hit subscribe if you haven't already done so. And with that, we'll see you in the next episode.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye-bye.